Over the last 15 years, soybean aphids have been absolutely terrible most years in the upper Midwest. We've sprayed on our farm just about every single year for 15 years. Well, when we talk about soybean aphids, we usually say, you know what, you can go out there for $2 an acre or less with a full rate of a great pyrethroid, and on our farm, that continues to work to this day. But there are some people who are unfortunately running into soybean aphid resistance. That's our topic today.
Well, when pyrethroids no longer work, what are the other options that you have? Predominantly, it's Lorsban. Well, if you have one option, how long is it until Lorsban quits working as well? We like to have multiple modes of action for any problem that we're going to have, so we can rotate or utilize two modes of action at once to do an even better job. And you see that with a lot of the pre-mixed products that are out on the market today. They're trying to pre-mix two different modes of action so they don't have a resistance problem. Well, it's already too late. There are aphids in Minnesota that are resistant to pyrethroids, and Lorsban right now has been the only option.
The other product that would be labeled is dimethoate. Now, not a lot of people use dimethoate. It's the same chemical family as Lorsban. So yes, it's an option, but it's not something people are regularly doing. Now, something we got super excited about just a few years ago was a new product called Transform from Corteva. With Transform, we could kill aphids without killing most of the beneficials out there. And yes, it would cost a little more money. It was about $6 versus $2 for the pyrethroid. But we thought, man, if we can kill the aphid without killing the beneficial insects, this is amazing. The problem was some environmental groups got after the EPA about this, that they needed to have more testing. And we're going, are you crazy? This is way safer, better for the environment, everything. So Transform briefly got pulled from the market. It's going to be back now for spring is what we're told. Okay, so that is absolutely an option, as well as the new Safina from BASF. Safina is a different mode of action from Transform, but it's very, very similar to Transform in that it's going to kill soybean aphids, not a lot of other insects, and it doesn't have much impact on beneficial insects.
Well, this is a big deal for farmers because now we could spray aphids a little bit sooner. Universities have encouraged us to wait until there are more aphids out there, just in case the beneficials were able to build up enough numbers to take care of them. But we've seen on the farm time after time, this just hasn't happened. It's very rare that the beneficials are going to stop the aphids in time before substantial yields are lost. So now with products that are safe for these beneficials, we could kill off the aphids early, still have beneficials left in the field for any future outbreaks.
Darren mentioned thresholds, and that's one of the things that absolutely has driven me crazy here over the last few years, because a lot of people are still using some antiquated thresholds like 250 aphids per plant. That's absolutely, I can promise you, wrong. 250 aphids at, let's say, an R1 or R2 stage in the soybeans is way too many. You're already losing a whole bunch of yield. So just like Darren said, yes, I think there's a big advantage to going to Safina or Transform if we don't have that impact on the beneficials. That'd be great, because that's what most people worry about, is killing those beneficials. But I just know this. Even if I have to kill some beneficials, which is unfortunate, I'm going to have to do it if I have that many aphids out there. So a lot of times what we found is even if we have 25 or 50 aphids per plant, it's well worth it when we're spending $2 an acre and when we're making a trip out there already to control something else. The whole thing is I literally had $2 of additional cost. Well, now if I have to spend $6 for Transform, will that change my threshold? Of course it will, because now I'm spending more money. So I'm going to have to bump up the threshold. It's still not going to get to 250 just running the simple math based on today's economics, but I am saying it is going to raise the threshold a little bit versus what we've been running for the last 10 years.
One other reason here that the aphid control is so important, and we talk about resistance, and yes, we're worried about that. We don't want to let resistant bugs escape, but we're also worried about the disease impact that we're seeing in fields. When we get aphid outbreaks, we're seeing more disease problems. That plant has been opened up by thousands and thousands of tiny little wounds on the plant, and all of a sudden disease gets in. So when farmers are out spraying these insecticides, we're seeing good gains most cases, putting a fungicide with it, and the earlier we can treat, the quicker we can stop that disease before it ever gets started.
Now, a lot of people are excited about Transform, or they're excited about this new Safina, or in specialty crops, Safina is called Inscalis. I am too. I love the thought of, hey, I can kill the bug I want, and I leave everything else. But the problem that we run into is we very commonly also, in addition to aphids, have other bugs out there. We have spider mites, we have bean leaf beetles, we have grasshoppers, and a few other things. So I'm just trying to say we got to be really careful when we're scouting to look for all the bugs, and if we start making recommendations that it's going to be Safina or Transform, we may miss some other bugs, and now we have to make another trip. So what very well will happen in the future in these areas where we have aphid resistance is we'll see combinations of using the pyrethroid plus Transform or Safina.
Well, you're right, Brian, because the broad spectrum control we've gotten from the pyrethroids over the years has really reduced the need for very specific scouting. We see enough aphids and we say, you know what, the pyrethroid is going to kill those other bugs. And you're right, we're going to have to, just like with weed control, really focus on which exact species are out there and how many of them are there, and then determine what we're going to use for that treatment.
One last thing I'll say, when we talk about spider mites, you have to be very particular in which pyrethroid you get. It's only Brigade or Capture that is going to control spider mites, bifenthrin, and that really is kind of limited to the Midwest. There is a lot of resistance with spider mites in other areas of the country. So I'm just trying to say, again, make sure you scout, you understand what bug you have, and whether or not you have resistance to certain insecticides in your area.
When you're out there scouting, don't forget to look for our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to control it coming up next.